Okay, welcome everybody. Lovely to see so many people coming in. We're going to just wait a moment for everyone to come in who's coming in, and then we're going to make a gentle start. Okay. Okay, so welcome to this evening's webinar, which is going to focus on your neurodivergent child at a state mainstream school. And this is the first of our live webinars during Dyslexia Awareness Week, which we're really happy to be celebrating with you all. We'll be saying more later on about the plans that we have for the rest of the week. And we've also got a spillover bonus webinar on Tuesday of next week, which some of you may be aware of. So more on that later in the evening. My name is Richard Whitehead, and my colleague Lisa Robbins is here and is going to lead on this evening's presentation. Lisa, really pleased to have you here.
Thank you.
And just a few words about Lisa before we get started. So Lisa is an experienced specialist behavior teaching assistant with 15 years of experience in both mainstream and independent schools. Her work spans supporting students from year 5 to year 13, which has equipped her with a diverse skill set and deep insights into the education system. She holds a BA in education and an MA in special educational needs and disability inclusion, SENDI. She's now advancing her expertise by pursuing a PhD, a doctorate, focused on exploring innovative approaches to teaching reading to dyslexic learners. Her research aims to transform the way that educators support students with dyslexia, ensuring that they receive the tools and strategies that they need to thrive. Lisa, did you want to introduce me, or do you want me to introduce me?
No, I'll introduce you, Richard, save you having to embarrass yourself.
You go ahead.
So, Richard is
Okay.
the author of the book Why Tyrannosaurus But Not If, which is the dyslexic blueprint for the future of education. He's PATOS accredited and an SPLD assessor and a former SENCO. Richard is also director and principal trainer in Davis, UK and Ireland, and has delivered one-to-one Davis programs since 2002. Richard has presented on the Davis methods across 5 continents and has conducted webinars and lectures on multisensory learning for Operation Diversity, universities spanning the UK, India, South Africa, as well as regularly for Davis, UK and Ireland. He has also been a guest speaker at the Dyslexia Show for the last 3 years. Richard's got a second book, which is Counting on Fingers, Why Some Bright and Creative People Struggle with Numbers and Mathematics, and How That Can Be Changed. And this was published in 2023. Are you speaking at the Dyslexia Show this year as well, Richard?
Next year, 2025, yes. It's now been renamed the Neurodiversity Show, and it will be in May of next year. And I'll be conducting some webinars for them online from November onwards.
Cool.
Great. So before we get started, just a couple of practical tips with regard to your Zoom control panel at the bottom of the page. You'll notice that there's a chat button, and there's also a Q&A button. Chat is for gossip. So if you want to talk to each other about our hairstyles or anything like that, you can use chat. We will also be dropping 1 or 2 questions into the chat, which if you are distracted by that, then please just ignore them and focus on Lisa and then on me, okay? But if you want to engage with us across the chat, in parallel, that will be there for you. if you have actual questions that you want to be answered at the end, please put those in the Q&A box at the bottom of the page, and we'll be working through those systematically at the end. Okay, so Lisa, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, so welcome to everyone's session. Welcome to the session this evening, everyone. It's great to see you all here. So as Richard said, this session is going to be looking at neurodivergent children in mainstream school and how to get the best out of that system for your child. Oh, hang on, let me go on. That one's at the end. So where do you start when you're looking at schools for your child? So I always recommend before you visit a school, it's important to do as much research as you can. The best way of doing this, I've always found, is social media and parent groups on Facebook. Most schools have a Facebook group, and they are brilliant resources, but you can get really honest feedback. Also use your own social network to ask friends who have got children at that school what they think. When you're looking at the school's website, look to see if there's a genuine commitment for special educational needs, disability and inclusion. Are they out and proud about what they do, or is it just a section that's hidden away? How they present this will give you a really good idea of how the school feels about SEN. So open evenings are a little bit like estate agent shows. They're there to sell the school to you, but they are also a fantastic opportunity to get a sense of the school's atmosphere and culture. Remember, these events are designed to show the school at their best, so take the time to look beyond the presentations. Pay attention to the students, how they interact with you. Are they confident? Are they enthusiastic? Do they work well with the teaching staff that are with them? Make sure you visit the areas that your child finds challenging, as well as those that they're good at. Speak to the teachers in these departments. Don't hesitate to ask to see the space where learning support lessons happen. Is it inviting, well equipped? Is it designed to make students feel comfortable, or is it in the corridor? It's also important to have an open and frank conversation with staff, including the SENCO and learning support staff, about your child's needs and how you feel they would be supported. It also gives staff a chance to showcase what they can do for you and what they can do for your children. So if you're going to visit a school, ask specific questions, write them down, take a pen and paper. It's important to understand how they handle interventions. For example, ask if they're in small groups, one-to-one, how often you'll receive updates about your child's progress. They're often things that aren't well, I'm trying to think of the word. They're not things that it's not normally a formal process. So it's really good to say, actually, I'd like to know once a month, is this possible? Also ask who would be working with your child. Is it a specialist teacher, or is it a learning support assistant or a teaching assistant? If it is learning support or TA, ask about their training and what strategies they're currently using. Also explore if there are alternatives. If the current intervention isn't working, does the school have flexibility in their approach? It is really important to understand the school's approach to SEND, and it's the key to knowing whether they will truly understand your child's needs and whether your child will be happy there. So I thought I'd go through the key staff that you're going to come into contact with and give you a rough overview of what their jobs are. So the SENCO plays one of the most pivotal roles in your child's education. It's Special Educational Needs Coordinator, and they, across the whole school, make sure that every child with SEN, that their needs are catered for and met. They also help create the individualised plans, the IEPs, they monitor progress, and they work with other staff to ensure they're altering their teaching strategies to include every child with SEN. Regular communication with the SENCO can really help give you insight into how your child is doing and what adjustments they may need. A strong relationship with your SENCO means your concerns can be addressed quickly, leading to better outcomes for your child. The SENCO works really closely with the head and the governors to shape policies for all children with SEND. They ensure that these policies translate effectively into the day-to-day practice, ensuring that children like yours receive consistent support. This includes overseeing interventions, managing resources, making sure that legal requirements such as education, health and care plans are met. Understanding how this process works can help ensure your child gets the support they need at school. It is also worth mentioning that most SENCOs have at least a 75% teaching timetable, as well as having to meet with all parents and children with SEN once a year. So they are really busy, so they might not get back to your email the same day, but they are normally really efficient and really good source. So going down slightly, it depends on whether your child is primary or secondary. So it could be head of key stage if it's primary, or your head of year. So these focus mainly on the academic and social aspect of your child's school life. They work with teachers to support children's progress, development, both inside and outside the classroom. If your child is struggling with emotional or social challenges, they're really good at addressing these. They can put in things like nurture groups and help with special groups for emotional support. They really help in ensuring your child feels that they are safe and supported. They're a valuable contact for discussing any ongoing challenges or changes that you notice in your child as they progress through the school year. So the class teacher or the form teacher, if you're secondary, is your pivotal point of contact. They are probably the person that you will speak to most. And they will be your first point of contact for everyday matters. They have a direct impact on your child's daily experience and can help ensure your child feels included and supported throughout the school. They provide updates on progress and challenges, and they can privately talk to students to help support them through tough times. Especially if your child is in secondary, then your form teacher tends to get overlooked, but they really are your first point of contact if you think your child is struggling in school. They can also provide updates on progress and challenges and help support you through whatever process your child is currently going through. So it's really important to try and keep an open line of communication with them and provide feedback on what's working well for your child as well as what's not working. And lastly, but one of the most important members of staff in any classroom is your learning support assistant or your teaching assistant. They play a key role in supporting your child, either by assisting in the classroom or working one-to-one. Their level of training and experience can really vary, so it's important to understand what difference it makes between a grade 1 and a grade 4. So, for example, a grade 1 learning support assistant will have their basic literacy and math skills, whereas a grade 4 will have a more in-depth qualification and can lead small groups and plan lessons. It's really important if your child has a one-to-one TA or is having support sessions with a learning support assistant. It's really helpful if you know what grade they are at and what their background is and also what they have training in, because it really does differ. The one thing about TAs and learning support assistants is they will be the one person who knows your child best. They will be spending a lot of the day supporting a very small group of children. So if you know there's a problem coming or you want to know how your child's really doing, then talking to the learning support system assistants is probably one of the best ways of doing it. They're really useful. So scaffolding and a prop. What's the difference and why are they important? This distinction between scaffolding and a prop is essential when discussing support for neurodivergent students. A prop holds a child up without them needing to learn the skills themselves. If it is removed, the progress may disappear or the child may even regress. Scaffolding, on the other hand, is temporary support that helps a child build skills, become more independent over time, and to become more confident. It's crucial that the support provided to your child helps them grow rather than creating dependence. It's important to ask teachers how they use scaffolding strategies to ensure your child will gradually be gaining the skills they need to succeed. So, what does a prop do? Well, a prop holds something up, and it will hold it up regardless of whether the foundations are there or not. So if you take it away, then the building tends to collapse. But while it's there, it looks like it's doing a really good job. It's doing everything you want it to do until it's removed. And then everything collapses. Scaffolding, on the other hand, is about building a child's confidence, self-esteem, and resilience. It's like building a house. You need to fill the gaps in the structure to make sure that it's strong. But just like real scaffolding, it's important to remove it once it's no longer needed, to ensure that your child stands strong on their own. As parents, we understand how scaffolding works to help you reinforce these strategies at home. And it's really important that you work with your child's school to the same end, because a more rounded approach is much better for your child. So why do we use scaffolding? Scaffolding, as I've already said, ensures that they're going to grow in confidence. It starts low to the ground, and slowly you can take it away or build it up depending on what your child needs. Some days they will fly with no scaffolding. Other days they need scaffolding up to their ears, or else they're just not going to get through the day. It's important to recognise when a child might be too reliant on support at school. This is particularly true if you have a one-to-one. Sometimes also teachers and learning support assistants may feel pressure to show that your child's making progress. This can lead to your child appearing to do much better at school than they do at home with homework. If your child regresses when that extra support isn't available, when your teacher's off or the TA's off, then it might be time to discuss the support plan with the SENCO or head of year. As parents, we also need to maintain realistic expectations and advocate for a balanced support to help ensure your child's long-term success. So, relationships with staff. I know this seems a little bit of an obvious one, but I thought it never hurts to have too much information. For the beginning of a new term or a new teacher or a new class or even a new school, I always recommend doing an All About Me booklet. It's a really great tool for helping new teachers understand your child very quickly. They can help you do it if they're old enough, or they can do it themselves. And it can include key information such as your child's diagnosis, their strengths, the activities or subjects they enjoy, as well as those they find difficult. It's important to highlight areas where they might struggle socially or emotionally, and how they react when they feel stressed or upset. As parents, you know those little key signals that tell you your child's not okay. And it is really useful if the teacher or TA also recognise these. It's also important to include in this calming strategies that work for your child and how they can realistically be done within the school environment. This booklet or leaflet should be short, easy to read. It provides useful reference for teachers during that crucial first term when everybody's struggling to get to know each other. Communication guidelines. Effective communication between home and school is absolutely vital for ensuring your child's needs are met. It's important to strike a balance. While you want to stay informed, you have to be really careful not to overwhelm teachers with lengthy emails or daily notes. If daily communication is necessary for your child's well-being, consider discussing using a home school book. This can streamline communication without adding too much burden on teachers. Remember that teachers often have large classes and are managing the needs of many, many students. A respectful approach really helps maintain a positive relationship, as does the use of humour. Acknowledge the pressure that teachers face, such as long hours, marking and planning. The fact that you acknowledge that to them really goes a long way. When issues are urgent, don't hesitate to reach out, but also set realistic expectations for response times. Building a positive partnership with your child's teacher and all the teaching staff he or she comes in contact with can make a significant difference to how supported your child feels at school. In an ideal world, you're looking to work as part of your child's team in their education. The tone of your communication can greatly influence how your message is received. Aim to be positive and respectful even when discussing challenges or concerns, acknowledging the effort that staff are making and offer gratitude for their support when appropriate. It's important to have realistic expectations for your child. Focus on their areas of strength and their areas of growth. Work together with teachers, offering to support rather than adding pressure. And remember that everyone shares the goal of helping your child succeed. A bit of humour can go a very long way in building a rapport and easing tension during a tough time, as can a note to say thank you for extra support or special effort. This can really help strengthen the relationship and encourage ongoing cooperation throughout the school. Ensuring that all aspects of your child's support are connected is key to success at school. It's important to verify that all teachers, not just the SENCO, are informed of your child's individual needs. Don't assume that just because you've told one teacher that the rest will also know. So, for example, make accommodations like sitting near the front of the class or needing to have printed copies of PowerPoints can make a big difference. If they're what your child needs, make sure that every teacher knows this. Also, set the expectation for regular communication between the staff who support your child and the SENCO. This helps ensure that everybody is aligned and that any changes in your child's needs are quickly addressed and implemented. At home, take time to review your child's work. Look for signs that their progress is being monitored and that the feedback they're being given in their books is balanced between positive reinforcement and constructive guidance. Don't hesitate to reach out to teachers of subjects your child finds challenging. Ask for tips on how you can support their learning at home. Remember, you are a vital part of your child's support network, working alongside teachers, support staff, and the school to create the best environment for their growth and development. Despite everybody's best efforts, things sometimes don't go smoothly. If your child is struggling and their class teacher isn't able to provide the necessary support, it's time to reach out to the next level, such as the head of year or key stage. The SENCO should be contacted if your child's needs change or if an adjustment to their support plan is required. For significant issues like ongoing bullying or a breakdown in the relationship between your child and the teacher, you may need to escalate to the senior leadership team. Remember that it's okay to advocate for your child's need. You are a crucial part of their support system and you know them better than anybody. And through that, you can help ensure that they receive appropriate care and attention. If you believe their needs aren't being met or their learning is being disrupted, keep pushing for the support they deserve. Your aim is to always work together with the school to find a solution that ensures your child's well-being. I would always suggest that you start with the lowest level that you need to communicate with. So if possible, your child's TA or their teacher, and only going up to the next level if there's a breakdown in communication. Sometimes there are clashes of personality between children and teachers and children and TAs, and that is absolutely fine. It happens all the time. In that case, then go to their head of year or key stage. The Senko you tend to contact for learning needs because that's what they deal with the most. And the senior leadership team, I would always suggest you keep those in your back pocket because they are bringing out the big guns really, and sort of your last resort. Right, I'm handing back over to Richard now, who's got some of the technical stuff to understand the gift of dyslexia.
Okay, so if we're going to come out of PowerPoint for a moment.
Yeah.
And, sorry, bear with me. In a moment, we will go back in. Okay, so I want to sort of suggest an idea here based on my own experience, really, as a Senko, as a special educational needs coordinator, that children with a learning difference will broadly have one out of sort of three learning mindsets. Okay, and I'm going to use the idea of a bird, as it were, as a metaphor for each of them. One would be, I'm going to call ostrich. The second one I'm going to call woodpecker. And the third one I'm going to call swan. So starting with ostrich, the ostrich mindset in a child with a learning difference is kind of to stick your head in the sand, okay? To avoid the problems that are presenting, to ignore and to ignore all all advice, okay? When I was working in learning support, pupils with an ostrich mindset would tend to come to a session, sort of sit through it, pay lip service to what we were trying to do, but then leave the session and not actually then really apply any of the adaptive learning techniques that we were proposing to them. Okay. Later on, when there are work deadlines, possibly coursework, the ostrich mindset will be to sometimes to avoid those work deadlines and essentially to hope that the problems go away. Now, the ostrich mindset is rooted in a denial of your own learning difference. And that sense of denial originates from deficit messaging around special educational needs, around your learning difference from an early age. So probably unintentionally, a child possibly, at a diagnostic assessment or through comments made at parent-teacher meeting, possibly through teasing from other children, possibly simply societally, a child picked up the kind of the mainstream messaging that dyslexia or dyscalculia, ADHD, whatever learning difference your child has, is a deficit. There's something wrong with you if you are dyslexic. Okay? And so that's where that kind of mindset is rooted. The ostrich mindset is usually a route to academic failure. Okay? The deficit mindset is causing pain to you whenever you think about your dyslexia or your learning difference. Okay? And therefore, you're going to be trying to think about it as little as possible, hence the denial. And if you're kind of avoiding the issue, avoiding the problem, not taking advice, and avoiding deadlines, that is likely to be a route to academic failure. But sometimes that failure brings a kind of a recalibration and a second chance. So one notable pupil whom I mentored in the sixth form, so he was 17 when I was kind of mentoring him, was very much in an ostrich mindset. but he failed his AS examinations, as they were then called, at the end of year 12, quite spectacularly, as a result of which he had to move to a different school because the school that he was at, um, felt that they could no longer support him. Once he got to the new school, his trajectory, his path just went up and up and up. It was as if something clicked, and he had to, in his particular case, he had to experience the failure in order to go, right, okay, this isn't going to happen anymore. This isn't how it's going to be. Yeah, I'm changing my mindset. He then left school with a very decent clutch of A levels, went to university, got, I think, a 2-1 at university, and is now in an established career. The second mindset that I commonly come across is what I call the woodpecker mindset. This mindset, in my experience, often occurs in girls. It can occur in boys, but there are more girls who've crossed my path with this mindset. And someone with a woodpecker mindset will work extremely hard to compensate for the difficulties that they're experiencing in learning. Essentially, it's a form of masking, as it's commonly called nowadays. Okay. Um, someone with a woodpecker mindset will do a lot of rote learning. As a younger child at school, at primary age school, they will probably have tried to cram material. They'll have worked very hard at night, desperately trying to repeat to themselves over and over again what they need to know for the test tomorrow. Yeah, but mostly using passive learning methods such as rote learning and repetition, because that's all they've really encountered so far, and they're just trying desperately hard to do as they've been told to learn and to behave essentially. So there will be a lot of rote learning. Later on, many of these children, often around about the age of 14 or 15, will develop exam anxiety. So there's a point at which, as you move through from key stage 3 out into key stage 4, that the breadth of what you're required to know expands. Okay, so if you were able to get by in key stages 1 and 2, to an extent in key stage 3, so up to the age of perhaps 13, 14, by kind of learning material and then reproducing it in a test, and then learning the next bit of material, reproducing it in a test, probably forgetting a lot of what you had learned because it was only rote learned. Then when you move, towards into key stage 4, that's when you have to combine everything that you've learned so far in order to answer unexpected questions. So you'll be given, situational questions, sort of puzzles to work out in tests and exams. And that's where these learners quite often, their sort of learning system will crash because the rote learning has not actually been real learning. And therefore, suddenly I'm getting the experience again and again that I go into the test or the exam room and my mind is just blank, even though I worked so hard the night before in order to make it happen. Next one, I work really hard the night before. I go into the test, my mind is blank. The clock is ticking. Everyone else is scribbling and writing really fast. And I'm sitting there, I do not know, I do not remember anything. And that can cause a real emotional cocktail for a child, which can then develop into exam anxiety and phobia. And someone in the woodpecker mindset fundamentally has low self-belief as a learner. They've been trying to emulate and to imitate the way they've been told to learn, which is often by people who learn differently from how they learn. Therefore, they're very confused, and they don't believe that they can learn. Again, someone in a woodpecker mindset will have assimilated a deficit model of dyslexia or their learning difference. They will not be attributing value to the way that they naturally think and learn. if you think that or you're told or you pick up the idea that there's something wrong with you, if you don't learn the way other people learn, then you're going to be desperately trying to learn the way other people learn, and you won't even be aware that there's another way to do it. And someone in a woodpecker mindset fundamentally is confused about their own identity as a learner. I don't get how I learn. Okay. And then there's the swan mindset. Someone in a swan mindset has recognized that they are not an ugly duckling, to go with the old nursery rhyme. They embrace a difference mindset rather than a deficit mindset. Swans have started to value who they are. They started to value their dyslexic learning style. They've started to become interested in how they can leverage their dyslexic learning style to learn better and to succeed better. They're starting to discover their own unique strengths. And they're not ashamed of their learning difference. When I was a Senko, I had a group of swans who spoke in a full school assembly about dyslexia, about some of the key role models in the world, famous gifted dyslexics, about the advantages of dyslexia. And they spoke in front of the entire school as dyslexic individuals about the positive aspects of dyslexia. Okay, and that was I was so grateful to them because that is, they were contributing to an enormous culture shift in the school among their peers, among the other dyslexic pupils who would have been too shy to do that. So that was quite extraordinary. A swan is willing to ask for help. They will put their hand up or come and see the teacher afterwards if they didn't get something, and will ask for it to be presented in a different way. And a swan will readily assimilate learning strategies that work for them. So if a swan is given, enlightened learning support, they will start to experience, wow, when I do it this way, it works. I learn it better. I remember it. I understand it. And swans will very often take what they're given as these new strategies and just run with them. And they'll just start exploring them, developing them outside of class, adding their own creativity into what they're being told about how they learn. Because if there's one thing that all dyslexic thinkers are, it is hugely creative. Okay. And as they become older, they start to understand how they learn, and they may well leave school with a really good clutch of qualifications. I've come across swans who came across my radar at the age of 13 with severe literacy challenges and emerged from school with a clutch of A stars, A's at GCSE, going through to get really good school leaving qualifications, and in some cases, even a first-class degree at university. Okay, so the swan mindset works. So it's kind of a no-brainer which of those three mindsets we want to have in our child, right? Or we would love our child to develop. So if the swan mindset is the one that's going to lead to success, how do we foster the swan mindset in our child? So the first thing to do really as a parent is to examine your own mindset. Is your mindset, open to, receptive to, and fully into the idea that dyslexia or ADHD or autism or any whatever learning difference or differences your child has a strength side. Okay. If you are not familiar with that idea or you don't fully get it, then find out about it. There are many resources now on the internet. There are many resources on our website, on our blog, that will, immerse you in the, the newer thinking about what dyslexia actually is, that focuses on and celebrates the strength side as well as acknowledging the differences. And a really good book to read if you haven't already come across it, is The Gift of Dyslexia by Ronald Davis. That, if nothing else, will convince you that at the root of dyslexia lies a perceptual talent, a unique perceptual talent. And that's actually where all the difficulties come from as well. Okay. And so see and acknowledge your child's strengths. We had an interesting message in the chat earlier this evening about somebody whose child did an All About Me book and quite enjoyed it, but was sort of hitting a block, I think, around the difficulty side. Okay, so once you get further into the SWAN mindset yourself, you'll be able to have a more solutions-focused approach with your child to the difficulty side. The difficulty is then a problem or a challenge that my dyslexic mind needs to get to grips with. Okay, have family discussions around how people learn, around the differences between how people learn. Again, you can find resources in our materials on that and elsewhere. And develop generally kind of a light energy around learning differences. Okay, stop thinking of them as a burden or a plight. We know that dyslexia brings a lot of pain, and that the difficulty side of it can bring chronic pain and anxiety over many years. But nonetheless, once one's really steeped in the SWAN's mindset, it is possible to start to lighten up, to see it more, see the positive side more, and to start to use the positive side to address the challenges. Above all, avoid blaming the world, okay? And adopt a solutions-focused approach, okay? So more on that in a moment. So the best way, in my experience, of fostering a SWAN mindset in your child in one fell swoop is to approach Davis and to integrate a Davis program into your child's learning journey. When I trained as a Davis facilitator 23 years ago, there was one Davis program. Now we have about 8. Okay, we have Davis Mastery for Dyslexia, Davis Mastery for Attention, Davis Mastery for Maths. All of these are one-to-one intensive programs that can be given to any child over the age of, well, children over the age of 8 and adults. They are rooted in the child's or the adult's own intrinsic motivation. It is a partnership between the person providing the program, that we call a facilitator, and the child. It is a journey of empowerment for the child, where our aim as a facilitator is, by the end of a short period, typically around about 5 days, is essentially to become redundant. So to equip your child to be a resilient, independent learner who fundamentally doesn't need us and does not need further professional interventions anymore. We do continue to provide some light support on an ongoing basis after the program, but fundamentally we've succeeded when you don't need us and when your child does not need us anymore. So it's a quick fire, short burst, hugely effective intervention. Many of the children, many if not most of the children who come through our doors for Davis Mastery for Dyslexia will come into the week reading books substantially below their reading age and finding them quite hard, and will leave at the end of the week reading books at or near their age and finding them relatively easy. And that is, that's what we're kind of aiming for here. There's also a separate set of programs called Davis Autism Approach and Davis Concepts for Life, which is an executive function support program, and Davis Stepping Stones, which supports verbally challenged individuals with autism and children with autism under the age of 8. And we have a Davis Stepping Stones workshop coming up later on this month. It's a tailored one-to-one approach centered around the child's own aspirations or the adult's own aspirations. It is fast track, so Davis Mastery for Dyslexia is typically 5 days. And we include support training, support person training for you as a parent and or tutor and or any learning support staff. to give you a sense of what Davis does, as it were, from the horse's mouth, I'm going to play you 3 very short videos, roughly a minute in length, most of them. This, first of all, is Helen, who started out as a dyslexia tutor and then encountered Davis.
Dyslexia tutoring wasn't really doing what it was supposed to do. You know, I would work once a week with numerous children after school. They were always exhausted because they're dyslexic or whatever, you know, they're neurodivergent, so school is much more difficult. And then we were kind of slogging through stuff that they found incredibly difficult. I just felt the whole thing was very unsatisfactory, and I would sometimes spend 3 years doing that with a child. I just wasn't happy about it. I just came across Davis on the internet. Nobody had told me about it, and I just sort of, I think I must have been just searching for something else. Because Davis works with the child's gifts. That's the big difference. You're using their skills, their amazing visuospatial skills, to help them to learn.
Now a short video from Janice, who talks about her son's experience with the Davis approach in collaboration with her son's school.
The reason I love Davis is because it really helped my son when he was 8 years old. Okay, by that time he was still reversing letters, confusing numbers, unable to read fluently. School were quite concerned about him, so he did a Davis program, and he said that all the interventions he'd done up until the Davis program were like banging his head against a brick wall, and that Davis was the only thing that started to make sense. Teachers were saying he's really, really intelligent, but really struggling and at the bottom of the class with another group of children, and they couldn't understand why that was. So I went on a mission to try and find something other than what had already been provided, because school were trying so hard, and that's what we found together, the school and myself, Davis.
And lastly of these 3, Donovan, absolute star. And we're going to hear his account of his journey with Davis, which actually started during the COVID pandemic.
I used to cover my work when I was writing because I didn't know how to write or spell, and I thought that people would make fun of me, but I don't do that now, I'll tell you later. And I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't do any of it.
It was very difficult for you. Yes, and then in year 4 you did a Davis program. And what was that like? What did you do on your Davis program?
Sometimes I do it with a tutor from Davis online, on Zoom and stuff, because at the time I think it was COVID.
Yes.
And we just did a bunch of words that I thought I didn't know how to spell, or even words that I did know how to spell. And basically we did that every night, and then I got better and better, and we also wrote down the words. So I started not covering my work and stuff, and I used to picture the clay models that I made, like, I can still remember one now, over. So basically I made this Tesla Cybertruck running over someone.
And you remember the word over now?
Yeah, I remember
Even,
it.
what's that, 2.5 years later?
2.5 years, yeah.
Fantastic, good. And when you went back to school, things were a bit different for you then. Did you find life easier?
Yeah, it was so much easier. I read this 257-page book, which is this one, and I thought it was good because it was my first book I've ever read, like, by myself without any help, and I just felt so proud of myself.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Donovan.
Thank you, see you later.
So that's a wonderful testimonial from Donovan. I'm just going to actually, we've had an update from Donovan's mother that we're able to give to you that has just come in. If I can just call that up for a moment. So that when Donovan's mother attended the pre-SATS parent evening, where parents were invited to pick up sample sort of SATS papers. So SATS being the the SATs, the standard assessment tests that you do at school. And so they were invited to pick up the sample papers to show them what would be expected of the children in 1 year's time. And the teacher took them off of Donovan's mother, saying something like, you don't need to take those. Your son won't need to worry about SATs. And that was enough for her because no one was going to write her boy off. So with some help from Davis, he aced the tests. So Donovan ended up with really high scores, specifically 91% in maths and 86% in reading comprehension. So pretty impressive for somebody who had been kind of written off as a child who wasn't going to do the tests just a year earlier. So back to the idea of a Davis program. Davis programs start at sort of £288 a month. In fact, many of the programs that we offer are at that sort of rate. And that would be something that would be, that would be paid for 10 months, and that's it. As opposed to possibly years and years of tutoring. So we're aiming to make a difference quickly and then kind of get out of the way in the nicest possible way. If you want to explore what Davis, can do for your child or your loved one or yourself, then you might wish to ask for a free initial consultation from us. It's a complimentary service that will be provided by any of our facilitators across Ireland or the UK. And I'm going to just, in case any of you would like to, go straight ahead and do that, I'm just bringing up onto the screen a form that you can use in order to just flag now that you would like that. And then if you're able to fill in all of the details on the form that's popped up, then we will put someone in touch with you over the next few days. Okay, just a word though that it's a longish form, which it kind of goes on and on. So you have to kind of scroll down until you get to the bottom, and then there'll be a button to hit once you've answered all the questions. And it's important, if you are okay just to answer all the questions, that's important, because then we've got all of the details that we know in order to be able to help you. Okay, and to give you a sense of what happens at a free consultation. So first of all, one of our expert facilitators will listen to you, to your child's needs. They'll let you know what are the options for help within the Davis solutions. If you then want, you can then book in for a more in-depth face-to-face consultation at a cost of £160. And this will enable your facilitator to take a detailed case and then to give you an informed view of what Davis solution is the best fit for you or your child. They'll tell you what benefits to expect. And if a Davis solution doesn't seem suitable, then they'll tell you that too. And so, as I say, do remember to scroll down that form as we go through it. Okay, and here's some of our team. Also, coming up later on in the autumn, we have the Davis Gift of Dyslexia workshop. Some of you present have already attended that workshop and might have a view, if any of you have attended it and you want to drop into the chat anything about what it's like, by all means, please do so. The Gift of Dyslexia workshop is an intensive 5-day immersive training provided online, but in a highly hands-on environment online. So we're on camera, on microphone, with lots of creative adaptations to make it feel like as if we're all in the same room together. And the workshop, I'm just going to play you a very short testimonial from the parent of a boy and the parent attended the Gift of Dyslexia workshop.
I started trying out some of the strategies. So for instance, the orientation, finding the orientation points. He was so open to all of the exercises, and he just suddenly started showing that he was working with what he needed to be working with and sort of making even more progress. They absolutely work. And not only that, I mean, I have seen my child go from having almost no attention span to being able to have excitement for his learning and joy for his learning. Instead of feeling sad that knowing that he's behind, he now feels that he too has tools that he can implement and make good progress. And he's really proud of himself, really proud of himself. And I'm very proud too.
Okay, so the Gifted Dyslexia workshop is taking place from the 26th to the 30th of November. It runs from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. UK time. And the normal price of attending, which includes a complete kit of materials and a 150-page manual, is £799. But we have an early bird saver, bring the price down to £599. And that's running until Tuesday, the 15th of October, or until 8 places have been taken. We don't want finances to be a burden to anyone attending. So if fronting that amount in one go is a problem, please reach out, please drop us an email. We're very happy to discuss flexible approaches to enable you to attend on whatever your budget is. Okay. If you do want to attend, then I'm just going to drop into the chat a link. And in a moment, I'm also going to just close the form that's up on the screen. I'm going to leave it up just for a moment longer in case anyone else does want to request a consultation. Okay. But in the meantime, I'm going to drop into the chat a link to the workshop. Okay, so that's in there now. And if you go on there, then you hit this rather posh RSVP button at the top, which then takes you down to a checkout. You change the ticket number quantity from 0 to 1, and then you check out. And then it can take you through, and then you have secured your place, and you'll be one of the 8 people who receives the specially discounted rate. And just a reminder again that the early bird saver, there are only 8 places that we can offer at that rate. So when those are gone, they're gone. And also any places at that rate will only be available until the close of Tuesday, the 15th of October. So yeah, if you do know that you want to attend, then go ahead and book your place as soon as possible. There's also a support pack that we've prepared. Okay, sorry, that's the wrong link up there. I'll give you the correct link in the chat in a moment. It's a support pack for your neurodivergent child at a mainstream school. Okay, and we've included up there some outside links into how to ensure that your child is getting the right support, and as well as a whole kind of host of articles, videos of past webinars that we've held, information packs. Okay, so I'll drop that into the chat for you very shortly. And yeah, and then you will have that. And before we move into Q&A, just a reminder that our next webinar is coming up on Friday. So we're working them hard during Dyslexia Awareness Week. That's at 7:30 p.m. And that will be, that's my webinar on fear mechanisms in autism, ADHD, and dyslexia. Now, I'll most likely be running that as a recording of the webinar that I presented on this a few months ago. Then at the end of the recording, we'll then have live Q&A. Okay, so it'll be like you're watching it live, except that bit will be a recording, but then you can ask questions based on what you've seen. And then next Tuesday, likewise at 7:30 p.m., I'll be presenting on early foundations for reading and how an approach to that is so much more than preventing dyslexia. An inclusive approach that we have, which enhances learning for all children, greatly enhances the number of gifted and talented children in a classroom and the likelihood that your child will emerge as such, as well as very effectively preventing the onset of special educational needs. So I'm just going to close the poll now. And in the words of Ron Davis, author of The Gift of Dyslexia and founder of our organization and approach, Ron states that the gift of dyslexia is the gift of mastery. And so Ron says, when someone masters something, it becomes a part of that person. It becomes part of the individual's thought and creative process. It adds the quality of its essence to all subsequent thought and creativity of the individual. So we're going to, in a moment, bring up another sort of form that we would love you to use in order to give us your feedback on the webinar. I'll also be dropping the link into the chat in a moment for the resource pack that we were referring to. Okay, so I'll just bring up the feedback side of this now. And then you can tell us what you thought of what we've given you this evening. I think that's now up there. Okay. And we're open to questions. We would love to hear your questions now. Okay. Great. And thanks for those of you who've who've posted in the chat about the Gifted Dyslexia workshop as well. Okay, so we've got one question. A participant is saying, so I've registered for the Stepping Stones workshop on autism, but I'm fairly sure we also have some specific learning difference around spelling, comprehension, and numeracy. Hyperlexic reading, so that's okay. What would be the best approach? Start with the autism work, and if that makes a difference, then do the dyslexia. Absolutely. That is what I would most definitely do, because difficulties, so you're talking about hyperlexia, and hyperlexia is the phrase that's normally used when an individual is a very fluent out loud reader, but has issues with processing the meaning of what they're reading. And when that is the case, then the content of the Davis Autism Approach or Davis Stepping Stones will then create the kind of foundation that an autistic individual needs in order to be able to process meaning generally. So difficulties in those cases with reading comprehension, they're often just the one part of a broader challenge around extracting meaning from life around you. Okay, so very many areas of life appear to be chaotic, which is why an autistic individual will often have meltdowns and so on, because there are many situations that seem threatening, and they seem threatening because you can't extract any meaning from them or purpose from them. And then when that's happening with a book, it's essentially an extension of the same thing. So most definitely, I would say start with Stepping Stones. Okay, so that's that question done, and I'm just going to we need to find a source for that link for the resources pack. Is there anything that anyone else wants to ask? Or Lisa, is there anything that you want to add while I'm just quickly pulling that out?
Just to reinforce what you've said, really, Richard. I mean, I've worked with children who weren't reading at sort of 7, and within 12 months they've been above age expected reading level after a Davis program. And the amount of children that whose parents are coming back 2 years on, similar to Donovan, saying that they're flying and how much they like reading, and just the difference that it's made, that they need absolutely no support at all now. Davis is true scaffolding, really.
A nice way of putting it. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what we also now find is with the onset of so many new technologies, again, it's like you've got a massive warehouse out there for scaffolding and for props. Artificial intelligence, text to speech, and so on and so forth. And Davis is really good at sort of showing a child how to use what's out there as scaffolding and not as props. So there's some very smart ways that you can use PowerPoint, electronic mind maps, text to speech software, voice to text software, artificial intelligence, online dictionaries, YouTube videos, which strengthen you as a resilient, independent learner, as opposed to just propping you up. But you have to have enough awareness about your identity as a learner in order to be able to use those materials in the right way. And that's something that we see a great deal. So I am a couple of clicks away from sending you that resource pack. Just a couple more clicks than I thought I was, but I will have that for you in any moment now. Apologies about that. Anything else in the meantime that anybody wants to share? Okay, that's interesting. Here we go. Got it. Right. So that's going to come into the chat now. And we can possibly do a quick screen share of that as well to show you what we've got. Okay. Okay, so this is a resource pack for parents and guardians, and there's some very valuable resources from another website that you get here, and then we have a screening assessment, 37 characteristics, our webinar library, and various articles around dyslexia and how to become a swan, essentially. So perfect. So we're now going to invite any of you who so wish to. Oh, we've got a message in the chat. I've recently experienced a learner in my class transform from a woodpecker to a swan. What a proud moment. That is fantastic. So here's what we're going to do now. I mentioned earlier in the chat that we're going to stay online for what we call a virtual coffee meeting. Okay. What we're going to do in a moment is to close the recording, and then we will give those of you who stay the opportunity to come on camera and just to chat with us. Okay. There's no obligation to stay, but if you want to have a more informal chat, then there'll be an opportunity to do that for about 20 minutes. So I'm going to turn off the recording now. It's been lovely being with you all this evening. See you all on Friday or otherwise hopefully soon.